So we reviewed measures of censure that are really fundamental to doing statistics. Often talk about what's typical, and that measures like the mean show up in standard deviation, which is a really important measure of spread that we use in statistics. Okay, so let's jump in here. Share screen. So we are now moving into, go back to the directions. All right. So this part three is a much longer part, covers basically the rest of the workbook. And we're going to use for this real data. And this paragraph kind of describes the information here. I'll just say, what I'm deeply concerned about police shootings. It's a phenomenon that is, well, we're going to learn more about it through the data. But as it's the data here is actually kind of crowdsourced in the sense that for whatever reason in this country there is no actual national tracking system for police shootings. My understanding that there still isn't one, and so the Washington Post, which is a major paper, decided to create a database to track shootings, and so people would bring in information. I mean, they had people working on it, so they would just be looking at news reports from around the country. And what ended up coming out was this database. So this is organized by date. You also have the name of the individual, the age, the gender, were they armed, what's their race, what city and state was it in, were they fleeing, was there a body camera involved, were there signs of mental illness, and then the police departments involved. It looks like this is departments, so there could have been multiple ones like this one. Looks like there are two different police departments involved. Sadly, this database is over 10,000 rows of information. And as you go through the database, you'll find places where there are blanks. And that is because based on the reporting and what was available, they still have not answered this question, been able to answer this question. And I don't know if they're still accepting tips or information, but if you see blanks and you go and you do the research and you find information that helps fill in blanks, you're welcome to send that information. That's how this database got built, was through people providing evidence and news reports that helped fill in the blanks. Okay, so first just want to acknowledge this is really heavy data, especially if you have been impacted by police shootings, somebody that you know, or your community. And my idea here, including this information, is that I want statistics to be meaningful. I don't want to just do fun, light stuff about things that are made up. I want to do things that really are important to the world that we live in. So the first thing that I want you to do is just take a look at the data and put some questions here. I've got 6, 7 blanks. You don't have to fill them all in. I'm questions means plural, so looking for 2 questions, things that occur to you from just looking at the information. So you're kind of looking through here, and you're welcome to play around with the data in any way that you want. You can sort. There is a way to sort here. So if I take this and I highlight everything, this up to column L, I can go to sort and filter, custom sort, and then my data has headers, true, so I can sort by age, for instance. And I come up with everything that comes in order of age. So you can see some of the youngest people who have been shot and killed by police. Okay, so questions, that's your first thing. And then the rest of this, we're going to jump into some graphical stuff. So what the first thing we're going to look at is the number of people killed per year. And this is one of the most interesting findings that came out of this data process was the answer to this question. What does the line graph help you understand about the data? And so what line graphs do is they give us something over time, and they allow us to see trends, right? So we might expect to see a trend that looks like, where's my drawing tool? There we go. So you might expect to see a trend that looks like this. So you might expect to see a trend that looks like this, or you might expect to see a trend that is all over the place. Those are things that a line graph would show you, and it would just kind of show how something is going up or down over time. All right, let me delete these. And so I had done this different ways in the past. I'm just setting this up to be the easiest way possible for you. So what I did is I processed the information here to just give me the year. So there's a function in Excel called year. This is all set up for you. Then I autofilled down 10,000 rows. So basically this line is just telling me the year that it happened. And then over here, I'm doing a special formula called COUNTIF, and we'll do more with COUNTIFs in the coming sheets. But this is set up for you to translate what's happening here. COUNTIF is a function that looks at a range of data, and it says either yes or no. It counts +1 if this thing meets the criteria, and the criteria here is C3. So I'm looking for 2015s. So to translate this fancy code, COUNTIF, look at the range. If it's 2015, +1, and we go through the whole data set. There's 995 of those. So all you have to do is autofill. And this is really where Excel, and I hope early on through this exercise, you can start to see like, oh, Excel is a really important statistical tool because it helps me manage data and work with data. And it's one of our main essential learnings is that you're going to get experience working with quantitative data. All right, I'm not going to autofill the whole thing. When you autofill, you're going to the cell that has the formula, you're going to the bottom right corner and you click and drag down. So it's left click and drag down. And a lot of times students struggle with autofill when they first are doing it. You have to kind of get used to your setup, your mouse, your computer, what Excel version are you using? Are you using Google Sheets? And so that's one of the places where being in person is really helpful because I can just sit next to you and I can show you how to do it. I can watch what you're doing and see what's going wrong. If you're struggling with autofill, a short backup is to do copy and paste. So I could take this formula, copy is Control C, and then I can paste it over and over again, and I can get the same result. Now that's not as good as autofill, but at least it kind of moves you forward if you're really struggling with autofill. There will be a couple of other places where autofill comes up. So this might be a point to reach out and send me a text and say, hey, I'm struggling with autofill. Can you watch what I'm doing? I can at least watch your screen. I can't see your hand and how you're using your mouse, but I can try to give you advice. There is a little validation step I asked you to do here. Find the total. You should be able to do that. We've done that in a couple of places, right? With our frequency table, we found the total here. I provided that for you, but now you're going to do it yourself. And then this is programmed to either say something is wrong because this total does not match what it should, or the total is correct and it matches how many there are here. And I think that it's something like 10,430. So if there's not 10,430, it's going to spit back. Well, it's going to keep saying something is wrong. So if I type 10,430, it changes to matches. You're not going to type that. You're going to do the sum formula and get the total. Now, at that point, you're going to make a graph. So I've got this sort of halfway done. I'll show you how you're going to make this graph. So I'm going to focus on the instructions because I just want to see if the instructions are good enough. Highlight the information in the table. All right. So what I mean is we'll go here. Now this is in the table. In whether you include year, number of shootings can make a difference. For now, I'm not including them. Insert, and then I'm going to go to scatter plot. All right. So scatter plot is down here. And then there is an option in scatter plot, which is my line graph, which is here or here. Okay. So this is my current line graph. And I can see 2015, 2016, 2017, right? We had 995, then 959, then 984, then 992, 993, 10,021. All right, so this line graph is tracking what I was interested in. And so at that point, I shouldn't spike the ball and walk away. I need to make sure it's got a good title, it's got good access labels, and then I want you to talk about what you understand. So just to show you how to do that, and it will depend on your platform. The title, I can just click on, I should be able to start typing. This is my title. You can also double click into here and you can mess around, change font colors and bold and things like that. And then the access labels are a little harder. You can see in the top left corner, there's add chart element. If you're on a Mac, that's going to be your go-to. You're going to do your access titles here. You've got to click on them one at a time. In the Windows version of this, there's a big plus sign over here, and I can just click on this and it'll give me both of them right away. So that's a nice feature. And again, click on it, start typing. These are my years. And then you're going to put in a good label here. Okay. So that gets us done with line graph. You're going to do the reflection question. One thing I'll point out about the line graph, which is sort of interesting immediately from my perspective, is that this is a very zoomed in range of numbers. And so it might be interesting to format this and choose something different. It's not what I want. Chart area. That's also not what I want. Okay, I found it. It was format axis. To click on this, and then I got format axis. Okay. So the minimum 950, the maximum. If I start at 0 and go to 1050, the appearance of this is very different. And so that's a kind of an interesting point about how scale can impact the visual, the feeling that you get when you look at something. So I'm not saying that you need to change that. I'll be curious how Excel manages it when you do your own scatter plot line graph, because you're going to have a few more data points in here. But if you want to see the full scale starting from 0, you can do that using format axis. And then this is what you're going to answer the question based on your graph. Okay. So let's move into the next graph. Bar chart is a very standard kind of graphical representation that we need to be able to build. And generally, the start of a bar chart is a frequency table that counts how many of the things, the categories that we're looking at. And they can be quantitative or qualitative. So in the first one I've got here, this is a which one is it? So these words are numbers. So it's qualitative, categorical. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to count. There's only 2 values possible, false or true. And so what we're going to do is we're going to count the falses, we're going to count the true. Now, I gave an example here of counting the first 10 values and seeing if they're true. And then I did it here for you. And you can see this is accurate. There's only 2 trues. And so if I count if from A6 to A15 and I ask for true, I get 2. So your job is to write countifs for these 2 boxes. It's going to follow this same structure. The range is going to be different, but one of them is going to look for true and one of them is going to look for false. I think I've got directions here. Find true values, find false values. Okay. So I'm just going to make up some numbers here, and I'm going to say it's evenly split, 5,200 and 5,100, something like that. This is not accurate. So if I see these numbers, it means that you had me on mute and you were just typing in numbers. So now I want to make the bar chart. So I go here, insert, and then I'm going to go up to here, my column chart there, and then I get a nice chart. Now, again, don't stop here and celebrate. You want to get yourself to a point where you can put in the title and the axis label. What is this chart saying to you? And get the axis label over here and think about what are we counting over here. This, probably you don't need an axis title for the x-axis. It's fine. This is clear enough in terms of what these bars mean. And again, you're having this issue, which is pretty interesting. This makes it look like there's a really big difference between these two. But if I format the axis and I start it at 0, then these bars don't look very different at all because they're very, very similar numbers. So again, the scaling of the thing can have a big impact. That's a part of creating graphical representations, thinking about it. It's also a part of interpreting graphical representations, looking at clues like that and thinking about what am I actually seeing. Okay, so I think we're done on that. Reflect on the bar chart about mental health. That's a pretty broad question. What did this shouldn't say line graph, this should say bar chart. I need to redo that. Control save. Let's just make sure this video link works. Hey all. Creating a bar chart from raw data. And by the way, this is, I post videos, support videos on YouTube, so you're welcome to look at my channel to see if there's stuff that may help, do the search button. Oh, I need help with histograms. Oh boy, histograms, big topic. Look at all these videos. Oh my God. So lots of support there for you through that platform. Okay. So we've done the bar chart qualitative. Now we're going to do bar chart quantitative. Okay. This one's really sad, really hard. This is the age, right? We've got some people that were shot by police that were less than 10 years old, including basically a newborn. We're going to work through the data. We're going to create a bar chart. And then we're going to move into our last graph, which is called a histogram. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want to figure out the minimum and maximum because I need to do a process here where I'm making a frequency table, but counting every age. I just need to know how far to go. This is already sorted, so I could just go down to the 10,000th value. But again, I have a formula for that. So equals max will allow me to put in the data and find what the maximum is. Now, that you may be saying to yourself, well, I still have to scroll all the way to the bottom. But there is a shortcut that's very important. Control Shift down will take me to the bottom of the data set. So this is the formula. You're going from A4 to A10,061 or something like that. And that Control Shift down thing is a huge time saver when you have these long data sets. So definitely get comfortable with that. All right. So it looks like the maximum is 92. I can do the same thing here. I prefer seeing you use min rather than just saying the number 0, but we already have seen that the lowest value here is 0. So I need to go from 0 to 92. I've got this set up. This number is just typed in, but this one is a formula. So if you autofill from here, you should be able to get down to 92. That's too far. Too far. That's it. Okay. So then I have this set up to be a COUNTIF. I've got the range fixed. I'm looking at J4. So I should be able to autofill from here. I'll just do the first couple ones and we can see that it's right. There's no 1-year-olds. There was 1 2-year-old, no 3-year-olds, 1 4-year-old, no 5-year-olds, 2 6-year-olds, no 7-year-olds. This is tracking with this, right? So I'm just creating a frequency table based on the ages at the beginning, it's a little silly because there's only one person that was that age. Later, there will be more, right? Two 12-year-olds, oh, four 13-year-olds. Okay, now more 14-year-olds. So we'll see higher numbers as we go. And then probably I would expect the numbers to go back down as we get closer to the higher end. So you got to fill this out. And again, using autofill should make it pretty easy for you. And then you're going to create a graphical representation of this, same process, insert, right? You highlight the data, insert, column chart, boom. Now, this may give you something like this. And when this happens, it's just really annoying. And I'll back up and I'll do insert recommended chart. And this is more what I'm looking for. Now, if you don't have recommended chart popping up for you, then you're going to have to kind of work to get to this point. But again, I have a bar chart. I have the numbers across the bottom starting at 0. That's good. And then these are counting up the numbers. I've only got 1s and 2s and 0s so far. So this is accurately representing what I see. As you go further, you'll have higher bars. Again, don't leave the chart without the title and the x-axis and the y-axis being done. What else do I want to say? I feel like I've got 2 reflection questions here, but it's not accurate. Make the graph, any graph. Yep. Does this bar chart have too many bars? Why or why not? I think this there's 2 follow-up questions. I'm not sure I did a good job of addressing that. I may need to put more information here. Well, forget it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. Basically, if you look at the total when you get to the end of it's not the same as it was for this one, which was like 10,340. And but I'm not even sure I asked you to do the total there. And all that I was sort of trying to get you to think about was the fact that in this data set, there are actually blanks. And there are blanks for some ages. I don't see any here. We ordered by age. Let me just go to the bottom. Yes, there are plenty of people, in fact, people who don't even have names, right? And were shot and killed. And so this speaks more probably to the unhoused, right? People who don't have any identification on them and were shot, killed by police. So we don't know how old they were. We don't know their name. We just know some basic facts about them. Okay. Heavy, I know. So this, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And so you're not going to see that question when you do that. Clear all of that out. Jeez. No fill. There we go. Okay. Gone. But this question I do want you to answer, which is, does the bar chart have too many bars? Because that leads us into the histogram work that we're going to do in the next sheet. All right. So I'm actually going to stop here, post this, and then we'll talk about the histogram in a separate thing. Now, there are loads and loads of videos, as I pointed out here. This is something that I've made many videos about. And, but I want to talk about the histograms, maybe in the context also of some Newton work around histograms. And so I'm going to stop there, get this posted, and we'll pick up with the last video on histograms.